Hi, I'm Alexandra Beaton, and you are watching the Permanent Rain Press.
Hi everyone, it's Chloe with the Permanent Rain Press today. I am so happy to be joined once again by Alexandra Beaton. How are you?
Hi.
It's so good to see you. It's been many, many years since we last spoke. I know we were just talking about 2019 in Vancouver for CFL Family Day, but you have
Mhm.
done a lot since we last spoke. So I'm really looking forward to chatting about Finding Her Edge on Netflix. But before we get into that show, I wanted to talk about one that I'm very familiar with, which is The Next Step.
Yes.
And the show ended its 10 season run last year. What did the character of Emily teach you about yourself, having gotten the opportunity to grow alongside her?
I mean, Emily was a great character to play. And obviously, when you start any show, you hope for 10 seasons, but there's no guarantee you're going to get 10 seasons. And especially with myself and with Emily, we came kind of in and out of the next step, especially within the latter half, I would say, of the series. But I mean, Emily really was my first foray into playing a character longer than a few episodes, you know? Like we filmed the next step and this was back season 1 of the next step and this was back in the day of like 22 episodes, which you just don't see that much anymore, though they do seem to be coming back. And just having the chance to grow with her and learn with her is something I don't think I'll ever take for granted. I mean, one of the great things about acting is you get to have experiences that maybe are, not the happiest of experiences or very confrontational in a safe place that don't really affect your actual life, but they do affect you as a person. And because of who Emily was and who she, I'm sure, is somewhere still out there in the ether, I got to have a lot of those. I don't want to say more negative experiences because that's the wrong connotation, but definitely more confrontational, more big explosive moments that come with young adulthood in a really safe way. So that was really great.
I think it says a lot about you though, and it really pushes like your capabilities as an actor to know you can go to these places early on in your career. You know, you were obviously younger back then as well, and like you said, getting to go on that journey with her. Now that the show is over, when you look back, are there any regrets or plot points that you wished had been handled differently with Emily and her arc?
That's a great question. One that always comes to mind is the e-girls and just like how that was kind of viewed, and again, different time, like a little bit of a clique, a little bit of like a bullying situation, which is how it was written and how it was definitely meant to be. And it did obviously give us some iconic lines like Emilyocracy and things like that. But I wonder now in today's day and age if it could have been handled more as like a girl power kind of thing, like a Spice Girl kind of thing. I'm sure it doesn't feed the storyline or didn't feed the storyline as it did. But it could have been cool to have it come back maybe in like season 2 as something more of a positive. That's always great. And then obviously with Emily and Michelle, like there's so much stuff we could have explored there if it was a different time. But I really do love their relationship and love where they ended up. So I can't complain. But yeah, probably just the e-girls and maybe reframing it and working with Emily and seeing how she would have reframed it in a positive light.
That's so well said because it really like does make you reflect on the changing times and maybe what would be a bit more acceptable now and maybe what you would feel a bit more comfortable being a part of. But we'll get into Emily and Michelle's relationship. But are there any specific scenes when you look back upon that run or dances that have stuck with you that you can tell me about or share today?
Oh man, yeah, one that definitely comes to mind is Stutter. So maybe other cast members have talked about this before, I'm not sure, but Stutter was actually our audition song. So when we did they filmed a pilot for the next step. I wasn't involved in that. And then they had like a big, we call it a cattle call, like where it's like such a wide net and you came in. And Stutter was a song that our amazing choreographer, Amy Wright, who was our choreographer for 10 years, the whole season or the whole series, she choreographed, I think it was maybe like 16 counts, 24 counts to that song Stutter. So that song really not only kicked off the whole next step experience for me, but also is, funnily enough, the routine I had the hardest time with, just because it was like the most we had to be like dun 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 in sync with it. So I practiced it a lot, season one as well. And then I always like have a special place in my heart for Emily's duet with Hunter. It was one of my favorite dances on the show. I love dancing with Zach. And it was definitely like the dance I felt most comfortable doing. And dancing was always a bit of a nerve-wracking experience for me on the show because I wasn't a dancer. But yeah,
I mean, I think you held your own.
it's a lot of really good camera work from our camera team. If you watch the show, it's like it's wide shots of everyone else and like they're doing amazing stuff, and then a close-up of me like so just the magic of cinema. I can dance. I don't want to take that away from myself, just not to the level of like, a Jordan Clark who had just won So You Think You Can Dance Canada.
I was gonna say like because you obviously like you said you can dance, you've like played cheerleaders before, and obviously we'll get into like the whole skating world, but were there ever any discussions on Emily, especially in the latter half of the series, like resuming romantic relationships with Hunter or West, and what were your thoughts on them as kind of brief love interests for her?
That's a great question. Obviously Eldon was the first one, heartbroken, things like that. And I really do think, and I love that our writers kind of left that one alone after the end of season two. Like I think it had kind of run its course, as you will. Uh, I see all the time, like I'm such an online person, unfortunately, that people are like, what happened with Emily and Hunter? Like, I personally think they should have gotten back together. I don't get why they didn't after the whole Amanda situation. I'm sure our writers had very, very good reasons why they didn't, and maybe things were moving around, like information I wasn't privy to. But I think it would have been great if she got back together with Hunter and they had had like a relationship in the later seasons. I think that would have been really fun.
I feel like for many people, the West one came, it kind of like evolved out of nothing. But
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have also been nice to like you said, reunite with Zach or reunite with Lamar, who's also
Mhm.
killing it now in
Yeah,
the
he is.
film industry.
No, it would have been great. And I guess Lamar did come back in season five. He was on Michelle's side of the studio. So there could have been an opportunity there, but I think there was so much other stuff going on that season. It might have been too much.
I was gonna say between like the older kind of TNS, like the OG cast and the new cast coming in with all their drama. It's just like it would have been a lot to fill the
Mhm.
time. But with Emily and Michelle, like you said, relationship very well documented. How special was it to see their relationship evolve from competitors to friends and business partners and getting to share the screen with Victoria?
Oh, it was so special. I love working with Vic. I love the fact that we have not only the relationship we have on screen with Emily and Michelle, but the relationship we have off screen as well. Um, I mean, one of my favorite parts of making like film or television is collaboration. Collaboration not only with our fellow actors, but with our directors, with our like costumes, with sets, with camera. Like it really does feel like you're in that time you're filming a family. And Vic was like my sister in that whole experience. And I don't think I'll ever take for granted the fact that we got to work together and kind of do this big thing for such a large amount of our lives.
There were a lot of like Michelle fans and shippers out there.
Hmm.
So I'm sure like especially maybe in the latter part, you could have been thinking like I wonder if there's something there, but they did I think open up really I think in the later part like more queer relationships, which was really nice to see in the
So
next
nice to
step.
see. Yeah, I mean, again, you never know what could happen if the show, started 5 years later. But then maybe I wouldn't be playing Emily. So
It's
But
always like,
yeah,
yeah, you
definitely.
look back, but then you're grateful for obviously the experience. And there's such an amazing team behind it. Like you mentioned, Amy, right, who did the choreography and to continuously come up with new dances, to even like new songs, but also the same songs and do something different to highlight the dancers was such a talent.
It's such a talent. And I mean, I think the one thing that always drew people to the next step was that it was a dance show. And there was always dance, and dance was always a big part of it. It never became kind of a secondary character, really. It was at the forefront of the show. And our, I mean, everybody, even like the camera team and our focus pullers, like to be able to capture that in a way that made not only the dancers feel comfortable, but I don't know if you've ever been around dancers or if you've seen them like start dancing. What like once they start, they're going all out, full out all the time. I hope Isaac won't mind me saying this, but like pretty much after every final routine, he would throw up, but because he was going so hard. And that really you have to be in a safe space to be able to do that, and you have to feel well taken care of. And so the whole team around that was always so impressive and never something that went unnoticed by any of us, even me, who was like, doing a spin and a leg hold here and there.
I love that. And I mean, when he was doing his spins, like the
It's crazy. Him and Miles can just like whirly tops or whatever they're called.
and you're like, how many can I do in succession?
I can do like four maximum on a
I
good
mean,
day.
hey, that's more than I'm sure a lot of people, myself included. But in season 9, it is mentioned by Eldon that he and Michelle wanted Emily's blessing before purchasing the studio from Nick. Now, this conversation would have happened off screen, but in your eyes, how do you think it went? And were there any reservations given their history together?
I think people want me to say that yes, there was reservations, but at that point, Emily is so happy with the life she's living, and I always joke not only with the team behind the accept, but Victoria specifically. Like Victoria got like 7 send-off parties. Emily just like fades off into the background. And I think that was a really a choice that I worked on with our writers, but a great choice that our writers let me do because it felt like the right time and it felt like it was a choice she was making. It wasn't being taken away from her. She didn't need like a big moment. So she is so happy and she is moved on isn't the right word. I don't think you ever fully move on from something you loved so much, especially for Emily, the next step. But she wouldn't have had any reservation. She would have just probably been like, oh my God, finally. Like we've all seen this coming. Like, I can't believe I had to clear 30 minutes of my day to like have the Zoom meeting with you two. So I think I think she was totally fine with it.
And on the topic of her life, at the TNS fundraiser, we don't really get to hear what she is up to with her career and what she's doing. So, can you share any details that you were either told or maybe conceptualize yourself for where she's at?
Yeah, of course. So in my canon for Emily, she went to business school, right? So she has her business degree, and I think she left the next step and then moved to New York. It's always also been in my head canon that post season 3 of the next step, Emily has been in like a long-term committed relationship that she never talks about at the next step because she's like, I'm not bringing this. I know what happens when you bring relationships to the next step. So I think she's been like happily with her partner. And she is like an agent in New York for all of the steppers who come out of the next step or come out of other smaller dance studios. And she helps like get them the best deals and kind of shepherd their careers in that way. So she's still definitely part of the dance industry, just in a different way.
I love that because it feels like, in this character, you live so many different lives. She obviously went from like a dancer and then she was like a smoothie shop manager. And when she kind of left, it was like, oh, to help do tour producing with
Mhm,
Michelle. So to be a sports agent, I feel is like very fitting. And I
mhm.
have to say, her outfits in the later part, she was always in this like tight kind of business
Yeah, she was
attire.
like,
Like the bun, like the hair was just like no room for like
I know. I mean, I wear
flexibility.
my hair like that myself, like as Alexandra as well. Like I love a slick back bun.
I know, it felt very appropriate to character. There's one scene that really sticks with me when you talk about like, Eldon and Michelle, and Emily may be thinking that they would always end up together, but there's that prom scene when they have Electric Eldon
Yes.
spinning the tracks and he interrupts them dancing and he's like, "Remember when I dated both of you?" And they're like, "What were we thinking?" And everything just comes full circle.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's such a fun that was such a fun season and such a fun part of the show. And I think that also just shows how close Michelle and Emily had gotten at that point because they're just like, yeah, well, we remember, like, why are you bringing it up? And I think that's, as any women like grow into young women, you kind of decenter men in a way. You realize female friendships are so important, and you have other hobbies, and you're like trying to be a good sister and a good daughter and a good friend and good at your job, and like I think it was just like a real growth moment for those two to be like, yeah, we know what's up.
It was very funny, but I love that her and Michelle share that moment in that finale that we got to see the two of them back together. How was it to return, like when you got the call and to reunite with a lot of the OG cast who maybe you hadn't seen for a while? Like, what do you remember from that day on set?
It was amazing. I was actually filming another show I did called Overcompensating at the same time. That's on Amazon if anyone wants to check it out. But I remember getting the call from my agent and then being like, hey, they're asking if you want to come do this. I think a lot of other people are going to do this. And they're like, well, obviously say no, like you're working. It's okay. Like don't stress about it. And I was like, whoa, 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 wait. Is there any way we could make this work? Because I think a lot of people sometimes think, especially because we were so young when we started the next step, that there's some embarrassment attached to it, or like you don't want to be constantly associated with the same things. And I definitely had that at some point in my life. Like, do I think it's my best acting work I've ever done in my life? Like, no, I don't. But I've never been embarrassed by it. It's always been something I've loved being a part of. And something I am really, really proud of. So the opportunity to go with all my friends, but then also get the chance to meet all the new people who are currently carrying on this legacy was really, really important, not only to me as Emily, but me as Alexandra. And it was something I really wanted to be a part of. And I'm so, so happy and so lucky that we were able to make the dates work. It was the last day of filming for season 10. Um, and it was such a fun experience, like really, really fun.
And then you posted the picture and Brennan's doing the giving you like the dip and I think
Mhm.
your comment was or on your post was like I always miss like
Yeah, I
regionals
think I
not
said
being
I
around the
think I'll always
corner.
be sad that regionals aren't around the corner. I'm sure I phrased it better when I wrote it up, but yeah, yeah, that was the comment.
It was so perfect to have Victoria walk in as Michelle and to all be in those poses. It just brought
Mhm.
back so many memories
I
to
almost ate
viewers
it. I
and
was wearing the highest heels. I was like,
you're like, I gotta make sure I stay up for this. But the show will forever be grained as a Canadian dance institution. Can you share some thoughts on the fans that have followed the show and your career over the years?
I mean, there's so much to say. First and foremost, thank you. Like that's really the first thing. Um, but they're amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm on TikTok and I see the edits, and there's some accounts that make the absolute funniest edits, not only of Emily, but of the show in general. And I just can't believe the longevity it's had. Like, I'll go in the comments, obviously, to check to see that people still love Emily, and people will be like, just started watching season one last week, like, eighth time watching it through. And it's nuts to me. And I appreciate it so much, but also think it's so interesting that this Canadian dance show like reached the heights that it did. And I think, I mean, when you think of Canadian shows that are reaching huge heights right now, like I think it's just so so interesting what people really grab onto and what can last. And I think maybe the final thing I'll say on that is just like being a part of people's childhoods is like a responsibility I don't take lightly, and it's something that I feel really fortunate I was able to do.
That's beautiful. And the Legacy World Tour obviously kicks off, I think, in February. Any
Mm.
chance of a cameo by you at the Toronto date in March if you're not busy?
If I'm not busy, I will definitely be there. There's a chance I might be busy, so I don't want to make any promises, but I want to go and like watch it as a fan. I think it's going to be amazing. And obviously, all those people are not only talented dancers, but really talented actors as well. So I'm excited to hopefully be able to go and see them.
Yeah, and some of the dancers, your friends who you worked with, Victoria, I think Trevor and Jordan will be there
Mhm.
as well as a lot
Alex
of like,
Chaves is there. I'm trying to think of Emily's there. Um, yeah, I think then there's like there I think there's maybe 11 or 12 people in
yeah. There's
total.
like a good mix of like the
Yeah.
OG cast and the newer cast as well. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll get into your current project now, and I will note for all those watching that we are discussing spoilers for Finding Her Edge. So please make sure you have finished season one before continuing our interview. What can you share about your audition process and what drew you to the character of Elise Russo and wanting to be a part of this project?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Elisa is she's a, kind of an older Emily in a sense. She's a different, she's much more adult, and the show and what we deal with on the show is much more adult. So just warning there. Um, I do feel like if you liked the next step, you're gonna love Finding Her Edge, which is available on Netflix, January 22nd. Just FYI, everyone. So if you're watching this now, you can go pause it and watch. The audition process was actually pretty typical. I auditioned in December, just normal, did a tape with my team, sent it off as all actors do, completely forgot about it because if you remembered every audition, you'd go absolutely crazy. And I think maybe a month later, my agent reached out to me and said, hey, like they want to do a chem read with you and Maddie Keys, who plays Adriana, who is our lead character and my sister on the show. And I actually did it right here. I did the chemistry read with her and I. We did two scenes, two big scenes from the show, and we did them a couple times. And I'm not gonna lie, I remember thinking like, okay, like I think I have a chance. Like that felt really good. I really knew the character of Elise. I absolutely love Jane Austen. I love most of her, like all of her works, but definitely Persuasion and Pride and Prejudice are two of my favorites. So I understood not only like the source material, but by that point I had read the book Finding Her Edge by Jennifer as well. And so I just felt like I had a good grasp on her. And on top of that, I felt like I had a lot of fun in the audition process. And sometimes they're stressful and they're nerve-wracking, but yeah, I felt like I had really just had a good time. And that night, my agent called and they said that they would so offer me the job, which was obviously like wonderful to hear.
So the waiting period wasn't too long for you. I'm glad you weren't kept in agony, but it's always nice to have such a positive feeling leaving an audition, like a chemistry read, like you
Mhm.
said. What specific elements did you draw from the source material in Jennifer's novel to help you bring Elise to life? And you mentioned, looking at some other forms of media.
Mhm.
So what other kind of key reference points did you draw that inspiration from for Elise?
So it's so interesting when you think of not only Persuasion by Jane Austen, but Finding Her Edge by Jen. Elise is a much more fleshed out character in our series than both the books, and that's no fault to any of the authors. Like that's just how it is. You have more time, kind of in obviously a 45-minute, 8 episode series to explore different things. But one thing that I think carries through from the two books and our show is just her raw ambition and her raw want to be the best, and that is something you get in each of the mediums in different ways. Obviously Elizabeth in Persuasion, she wants to social climb, she wants better for herself. The book and the show are much more similar in that, and they really don't shy away from. And I like, we actually talked about this a little bit with the next step, like how things can change as time goes on. Obviously, in the book Persuasion, her want to social climb and to achieve better on herself is looked at as bad in a way, or at least not of the time. Where in the book and the show, it's something that's actually really celebrated, and it just shows how far like women have come and what women can want from themselves have come. Um, and so I think that was something I really understood about her is just like her want to be the best and to be good. And I really understood that on a personal level. And then I've spoken about this before in a few ways, but I am really close with my sister. We are best friends. And so any kind of sister relationship, both with Adriana and then with Mimi, Maria, who plays our little sister in the show, is something I understand very, very deeply.
That's your sister Sophie, so
Yeah.
we'll give her a shout out. It's so nice to kind of be able to take these aspects from your life. And I have a sister as well, and you kind of go through it with your sister. Obviously, you have high moments, you have low moments, but getting to always come back to the root of, that love for each other. So we'll
Mhm.
talk a bit about that relationship later on. But I thought with Elise, she was stubborn, which was a character trait. She was entitled, she walked with purpose. So when you think about like her physicality, were those also notes that you were taking?
Yeah, there's a couple big physical things that helped me drop into Elise. Like one is she's an athlete. So she's very confident in her body and what her body is able to do. Um, I think that comes through in various moments of the show. I'm not gonna scoop anyone, but she is comfortable with herself and she, in that area, really, really loves herself. Spoiler alert, when that gets taken away, it really sends her on quite a downward spiral. But for the first episode, you can see how she lives in her body and she lives kind of outward. The other thing that she always sees is she's a performer. And so she's constantly always, she's used to being viewed and she likes being viewed. She likes being seen in that level as well. Um, and so I think that's really important too.
I like that you mentioned that because there's that moment where she goes outside Russo Ring and she's just, she's not feeling 100%, but then she gets asked for an autograph and it's almost like that switch turns on where she's like, okay, I have to perform. I have to,
Mm.
be what they want me to be. Playing a figure skater, but coming from a bit of a, dance background with your past work, how much research and preparation did you do with respect to the sport and how did that inform you and your mindset?
Tons. We didn't have that long, but like to when we got cast to when we started filming. It was maybe 3 weeks. So we were immediately put in skate um, classes and rehearsals with our amazing coach Brad. So I did a couple there, so that helps me a little bit with the physicality. Also, my dance background helped me with the physicality as well. Um, but mentally, especially with the journey Elise goes on in this series, that was where like transparently my focus really was. I did a lot of research into specifically what happens to athletes once they retire from the Olympics or when they win gold. Like what's next? What happens after? Michael Phelps actually has a really great documentary that explores this that I had watched a couple times. And then honestly, I binged every kind of sports documentary that Netflix had, and they have a lot, which was I was so, so happy about. Peyton Manning had just released, I think Quarterback had come out as well. So I remember watching that and just, how integral being an athlete is to like their value system, but also how your whole life revolves around it. And not only your life, your family's life and everything that goes along with being a professional athlete and what happens at the highest highs and the lowest lows. I'm really lucky that Netflix has like such a wealth of knowledge out there and that these athletes were prepared and able to speak on it. Like it was just a wealth of knowledge. And so I did like sit on my couch and watch it and cry for a couple of days.
I think like getting into that, like you said, internal mindset, especially like what she faces, really like early on in the series, Elise lost her mother around 2 years ago. Can you
Mhm.
expand upon how her absence has affected Elise personally, as well as her relationships with her father and sisters?
I think pre-injury, Elise hasn't really let it affect her at all. In my how I played it is her mom passed away and Elise said, "Okay, I'm going to be a star and I'm going to fulfill my mother's legacy and fulfill my mother's wishes that way. Like, this is what I was born to do. This is what she wants me to do. I'm not going to feel anything except for my want and my drive." And I think she connects with her dad, Will, who's played by the amazing Herman Walsh, that way as well, because they're both like, this is how we save Sarah's legacy. Like, this makes sense to us. This is within our control. This is what we're willing to do and have to do. Post injury, she doesn't have that to focus on anymore. And I think not only is she dealing with, or I know, not only is she dealing with the physical pain that she's in, the mental pain that she's in, but also the emotional pain that she is now being forced to feel of like, wait, my mom is gone. I don't have somebody to talk to about this. And this is the first time I really have a second to realize like what that all means. And so all of that really kind of crashes down on her um, throughout the season in different ways.
And it all hits her very quickly, and she feels lost. And, she is seen before that as the golden child. She's prioritized at the rink as the Russo's next champion. She knows
Mhm.
that, she enjoys it. Tell me about those pressures and expectations. Like, how does it start to weigh on her, Elise? And this is even pre-injury when, she's constantly being told, she's constantly being pushed into the spotlight by her father, and
Mhm.
it's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, she has a lot weighing on her shoulders. I think also she is, as much as I'm sure she's trying to ignore it, and she definitely was trying to ignore it, she knows there's something going on that's not being said. I mean, she says it in a scene I have with Adriana, Maddie Keys, where it's we call it the mirror scene, if you know what I'm talking about, where she acknowledges like I know what's going to happen if I don't go out there and win. I don't. I think that's hard. I think it's really hard to not only compete with the normal pressures of wanting to win, but also compete with the familiar pressures, compete with, you know, keeping your family afloat. I don't know how anybody could go out there and do three spins with that kind of weight on their shoulders. And all of that obviously manifests, and you really do get to see that in specifically that skate, like the fear in my eyes going up to it. Our camera team and our directors like really captured that in such a cool way. But I mean, pressures sometimes make diamonds, but a lot of times it just makes really, really hard stones. So,
It must give you so much respect for the figure skaters who go out and do this day in and day out. But for Elise, the financial issues, like you mentioned, she's not oblivious to them. They start to reveal themselves. She
mhm.
starts to question like her goals in love for skating because it was so intrinsically tied to her mother, and she was a good skater, but when that's kind of taken away, everything begins to, fall into place differently than what she imagined. Dislocates her shoulder in that fall and mentally struggling to return to the ice. Take me through that conversation she shares with Dr. Ashgar and confronting the idea that skating may not be her only option in life.
I, for me, when we were filming that scene and having that conversation, like, yes, there's the words that we're having that, you know, you have other options. And I think for me, I'm saying, do I? Still in that moment. But what Elise is really reckoning with in that scene is, well, this is the thing that made me special. And without it, I'm not special. And I think a lot of people have a thing that we think makes us special and we think like makes us worthy and worthwhile and like, okay, well, this is what I'm good at and this is what my value is. Um, I think a lot of people can relate to that idea. And she's now asking, am I still valuable? Am I still worthy without it? and Dr. Ashgar is saying, well, there's other things that you can do. And she's saying, yeah, but am I still good? Which is obviously a really big question for anyone to to reckon with. It's actually like transparently one of my favorite scenes in the whole show, and it was brutal to film, like just crying all the time. And it's funny acting wise, it's so nice when you can like start a scene crying, but with that one, I obviously don't. And I just remember being like, wait, wait, and the makeup team like running in and trying to make it look like I hadn't been crying for 40 minutes. But yeah, it's a big scene, and I think there's a lot of subtle context into the conversation we're having that people who've questioned like their self-worth will really, really understand and hopefully relate to.
Well, it was beautifully acted by you, and it was hard to see her kind of, you know, I mean, her character, sometimes it can be hard to empathize with her, but at the same time, you know what she's going through, and it's hard to see her, having those kind of panic attacks before she hits the ice. Throughout the season, like Elise, she is quite harsh in her comments towards Adriana, accusing her of trying to take her spotlight, undermining her abilities, both to her face and to the Esmond journalist. Tell
Mm.
me about the personal comments and where it's coming from. Like, why does she choose to react this way instead of being open and honest about her feelings and fears?
I mean, she's just on a path of self-destruction, right? Like every choice she can make, she's going to make the wrong choice because she doesn't know how to make the right choice, and she almost doesn't feel worthy of the right choice either. Um, and so when she can make the wrong choice and kind of dig herself deeper in that hole, that feels better to her than turning around and like saying, "Oh, this is what I'm going through, and like I really need help here." Um, and specifically with Adriana, like she was so used to seeing her as like her little helper and her little sister, and like this is the box that felt good for her to be in, and she's exploding out of that box in such an amazing way. And obviously it's happening at a time for myself or Elise where like that's really not good for me right now. And it's easy for her to be mean. It's easier for her to push than to hold out her hand and say, I need help. Like I'm really struggling.
When she continuously calls her the invisible middle sister, you just want to like smack her and say that
I
is
know, it's like,
so,
stop.
I know it's so mean. How did you prepare for that emotional scene to end episode 3 when Elise leaves home and she chastises her father for his
Mhm.
poor business decisions?
I mean, any scene where I was acting with Alice and Maddie, and even like obviously adding Harmon in the mix, we adore him. We all were so close and we all like each other so much that there is implicit trust, which for me, anytime I'm playing a character who is awful or definitely polarizing, having that trust with my fellow actors is so, so important because then I'm not in the back of my head thinking like, oh my God, am I hurting their feelings? Are they going to hate me? Like, you know, and so the fact that they were so great and so warm and so loving, like during those scenes, like really, really helped. And obviously all of us are professional actors, so we knew we were acting, but it still sucks. It sucks to like be mean to people that you actually love. But on the flip side of that, and maybe this says more about me than I should let on, but like I really don't hate playing mean characters. I think they're really interesting. I think they really what they're able to bring and how they're able to move the story along um, is really, really important to me and something I like to be able to do as an actor. Um, and those kind of challenging moments are things that, yes, I'm always a little nervous of, but also things that feel really great once you know that you nailed it in a way, or like you had an emotion that doesn't like come in your natural life that you're like we're able to experience with this group of people who you really, really love.
Definitely. And it's really all about understanding your character as well, like getting to that place where she's at in her life. And at the same time, I feel like her father needed to hear that. She said she was tired of the toxic positivity, and obviously all of this has been weighing on her. She kind of turns to alcohol as a bit of a coping mechanism. And
Hmm.
outside of the sponsorship gala, she shares that kiss with Freddie. I know you mentioned, she'll take the wrong decision. So take me through that moment from Elise's perspective, given the history between Freddie and the Russo family, but also specifically Adriana.
Yeah, I mean, like this is her big one. This is her big mistake. There's really like no redeemable aspect here. Um, Maybe in the end, she realizes how wrong she was, and this is a bit of a catalyst for a page being flipped for her. But leading up to it, I mean, think of where she is. She's hurt. She's mentally pretty unwell. She's living at her boyfriend's, who she doesn't really like. Um, she's made a huge mistake with the Esmond article. She doesn't really want to be at this gala. She was just rejected by Brayden. Again, she just feels like one punch after another, a little bit kick while you're down situation. And so for me, and how I had to play this scene to make it make sense, I don't really think she goes out to find Freddie to kiss. I think she does go out just for like some air and also some comfort. She sees somebody who's also in pain and she's like, oh, I know how you're feeling. And because Freddie and Ollie, who plays Freddie, is so amazing and so sweet, is so nice to her. And it's like just something she hasn't experienced, like this idea of being valued and being spoken kindly to, like in that moment, she's like, oh, like this is what I want. And you're making me feel good. So now I want to feel even better. And obviously alcohol plays a little bit of a role in that as well. Um, but for me, that's how I had to play it. And also, and maybe this isn't the right time to say it, but I do like every character I play. Like even within Emily's worst moments, I liked her. Even in Bridget, who I played in Overcompensating, I liked her. Like you have to find a way to like and love your characters because most of the time, most people don't think they're making so many wrong decisions for themselves. Um, and so that's where Elise was at, but also where Alexandra, was at, like in my journey with her.
I mean, I think it would take even more of a toll if you didn't like your character in some sense, because then you kind of be pushing against everything they do. Like if
Mhm.
you disagree with all their actions and their motivations, that moment, yeah, it was huge to a lot of viewers. I remember watching it in my screener, and I was like, oh, that's going to cause some more trouble later
Mhm.
on. But
Yeah.
in episode 6, Elise, she is told off by her sister for once, by Maria, for
Mhm.
her cheating and her attitude towards others, and it causes Bustin to leave her. How did Maria's words affect her and really force her to start reflecting on her behavior?
Elise and Maria, I call her Mimi, they've always been really close. I think Elise took on at least a little bit of a mother role once our mom had died. And so they've always been really close. And even in Elise's worst moments, Mimi supported her and loved her. And so this being the thing that pushed Mimi away from her and kind of it was the big tipping point. And I think also Elise realizes she did something really, really wrong as well. Um, it kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. Like she knew things had to change. At this point, she's also had some time to digest the conversation she had with Dr. Ashgar. Um, and so I think like things are changing for her slowly. And this moment where like she now realizes she's pushed everyone away, including her little sister, like she knows she has to make some big changes and she knows this isn't how she wants to proceed anymore. And I think also not being able to get Adriana back on side, like not being able to win her over with saying sorry and coming clean and being, no, like you have to still want me and love me. And Adriana basically, no, I don't. At least not how you are, was a big turning moment for her as well.
And that was the next scene I kind of wanted to discuss.
Oh,
But
sorry, I
before,
scooped you.
Before that, I'll just give kudos to Alice in that scene because it was so fantastic, to see her stand up to her older sister,
Mhm.
for the right reasons, of course, as well. But that scene with you and Madeline at the end of episode 6, I'm wondering maybe that was one of your chemistry read scenes that you had to
It
do because
was.
it was a
Yeah,
big
good job.
one.
Mhm.
But like you said, Elise, she actually opens up about her feelings, but she justifies her actions due to her injury. She is rebuffed by her sister. So, how was that to film? And did you have any discussions with Madeline about it beforehand?
Maddie and I were so connected our whole like filming this series, like we were like this and we're still like this. Um, this scene was one we did talk about a lot. You want to talk about it and then forget it, essentially. Like you want to have a conversation and then be able to be like, okay, I know what you want to achieve, I know what I want to achieve, and then we have to go in and be two like actual human beings doing this in a non-rehearsed way. Um, I have to just give a shout out to our amazing director who directed this and also our crew who was like so respectful of what we were trying to achieve because there was also I don't know if you remember the scene, there's a lot of movement in it. Like we're kind of circling each other and getting that right and landing on the marks were also things we're thinking about as we move through the scene. Um, but really like acting with Maddie is such a joy and it's like never hard. And so being able to do the scene with her, I I will say I think we did it one way for me, and then where she did the deliveries how maybe she wouldn't do it for her coverage, and then I did it a different way for her coverage, so we could get the right emotions that we were going for as our characters. And that's always really, really fun to do as well. And I think the editing team just captured like little moments that we brought in those different types of coverages in a really, really cool way.
There was a lot of nuances in your performances, and you can see the regret and shame at the end as Elise kind of calls out for her sister because I feel like, and I might speak with Madeline about this later, but she did never completely iced Elise out beforehand. Even with the magazine article, like she still ended up talking to her and
Mhm.
trying to maybe read her, give her some support. But that moment, like after that kiss with Freddie, was where, like you said, a bit of that bigger tipping point. But after the episode 7 storm, the on ice collision, and the flight debacle, Elise, she begins to find her voice and a purpose outside of skating herself. So, how did these events empower her?
I think like anything there's moments in life where you're asked to step up and these moments were just it made sense for Elise too. The situation with Mimi, she was the only one who could go and find her and so she did. Um, it's her house. She knows where things are. She is a person who's used to being in charge. So she steps up in that capacity as well. Even lightening the mood. There's one of the things I really hope to bring to Elise, and I hope that people do find in her is like she is funny and she is fun. Like she's like there's that stuff that she's good at in a sense. And so these opportunities presented itself and showed her like, oh, I am good at these different things as well. Like maybe they're not giving me like a standing ovation that skating did, but they're helping and they're being helpful and they're making me feel good about myself. Um, and so those kind of episode 7 moments, I think, set her up for what happens in episode 8 and who she kind of grows to be in those moments with Katya and with like the breakfast situation in Paris and things like that.
And I like what you mentioned before about how it gets kind of the wheels in motion, but it's not always an overnight change as well.
Mhm.
And, we see that in Paris when she really does get scolded by each member of her immediate family because obviously she, makes that roommate remark to her father and then he
Mhm.
snaps at her. And that was really like, she looked shocked. Like her face was like, I can't believe you said that to me. But
Mhm.
she's starting to grasp that other people are also going through even more difficult things as well. And she does help her father and Team Russo. She watches her sister and Brayden win gold.
Mhm.
Describe her feelings being on the sidelines and having to find that silver lining.
At that point, she's so happy to be back in the fold. I don't think she's taking for granted like how far out she was, like alone in the cold, cold wilderness. And she did really have to work to get back there. Uh, at this point, she's also aware of the bigger things at play for like their actual lives, not just their skating lives that are happening. Like how lucky they are to even be in Paris with the financial situations, like how much they need Adriana to win here. Um, and so really she's looking not only like beyond herself to her family members, but beyond herself to like people's actual lives and livelihoods. Um, and so there is real joy that not only things are working out, but also that she's involved with making them work out.
She does return to the ice to skate with her sisters at the gala after Braden doesn't show. How symbolic and important was that moment for both Elise as well as the family after all they've been through?
Well, first for Elise, it shows that she's back on the ice. You do see a little bit of it that she's overcome her fears when she does the pond skate with Mimi once they make up. Um, but this is something you probably that's happening off screen that people haven't seen, that she is skating again, that she's working through some of that mental aspect that comes with having had a bad fall and having really kind of lost it for a little bit. So for her, that's huge. And then just, I mean, again, speaking about how close I am with my sister, like if I saw her out there alone, like nothing would stop me from getting to her. And I think it shows how far Elise and Adriana have come themselves. Like not only that Elise goes, but Adriana doesn't feel like she's encroaching in a way, that she's excited to have her out there. And it is just this moment where they're skating to their mom's song that is so symbolic of family, which is such a large character in this show in general.
And for them to invite their dad on the ice as well. Like it's one thing where, like you mentioned off screen, she is skating for herself, but this is a bigger stage as well. So, being comfortable to go out there and do this tribute to their mother.
Mhm.
You worked closely opposite Madeline, Alice, and Harmon as your on-screen Russo family. What can you say about each of them as individuals and as scene partners?
Oh man, what can't I say about them? They are the absolute best. Um, I'll get like emotional. Like Alice, who plays Mimi, she's so funny. She's so smart. We had the best time doing all our like scenes where we're eating the ice cream and we're watching the figure skating. It's just so fun, and we riffed so much. And a lot of our riffing is what you see on camera, which is always amazing. Harmon and I mean, we had some hard scenes. I won't lie. Like they're charged. But one of my favorite scenes with him is the scene we were just talking about when he kind of bites my head off. Um, it just needed to happen. And it felt like just like yeah, you know what? She deserves that. And she needs that. And it was nice that our amazing writers gave like him the chance to do that. And because normally it's me biting his head off. And so that was amazing. And he himself, I mean, he has two kids, so it like they're younger than us, but he was just like, I can't believe this. Like, and it was just so nice having those like dad moments with him. And then I think I've talked about this obviously in this interview, but Maddie and I are so close, and working with her in any capacity is a dream. And I like hope we get to do 100 more seasons of the show so I can keep being her sister.
And that moment between your characters was really sweet when she does say she's proud to be her sister after, outside their hotel in Paris, and that the mom would be proud too. I loved the unbelievable scene. I know we didn't talk specifically about it, but them returning from that birthday party was such a
Yes,
good
yeah, yeah,
sister
yeah.
moment between
Mhm.
them. So you mentioned like riffing. Was any of it improv, or was most of what we see written on the page?
Oh, I mean, our writers are great. So they like we didn't need to make any edits in that capacity, but as actors, we're always putting things in our own voices, and also just how I naturally like do inflections on words are going to affect how Alice and Maddie like deliver their lines. And so a lot of that is like kind of left up to us as the actor. I will say the like dancing into the kitchen was the three of us. Like we really wanted to be like da da da. And so I think that also starts the scene off in like a really, really fun and upbeat way. And just that's a moment like sisters, I think will understand like just what it feels like to be silly with your sibling is like the best feeling in the world.
There's always like a good spontaneity involved in like, every hangout and those moments. If
Mhm.
renewed for a season two, what do you hope to explore with Elise? And are there any specific storylines or other characters you'd like to see her interact with more?
It's a good question. I would love, and I don't like, I've not talked to our writers about this, so I don't even know if this is a possibility. I'd love for to see her balance like what she's learned with being an elite level skater again. Um, and maybe going too far back and having to bring herself forward and like or just trying to marry these two new versions of herself. I think that would be really, really interesting because there is a part of being an elite athlete at that level where you really have to believe in yourself in kind of a crazy way. Um, and so I would love that to be kind of a personal aspect. Obviously, I'd love to see their relationships with her sisters grow a lot more and deepen. Maybe even like stepping into a little bit of a coaching role with Mimi could be interesting because that's something she's currently doing at Voltage right now. Um, and then, I'm not averse to a little romance in Elise's life. So I think that would be great too.
It was really interesting to see where they end off because obviously Adriana and Brayden do win gold, but it wasn't enough to save the Russo ring. They ended up, having to get the ring bought out.
Mhm.
Obviously, we see Elise is coaching at Voltage, so it would be nice or cool to see her get back on the ice in a competitive role. But for the time
Mhm.
being, it seems like, she might be adapting to a bit of a new normal, just like coaching younger skaters. So I'd love to see where that ends up. How old is Elise supposed to be in the show? I know I didn't touch on it earlier, but is she supposed to be around?
There's kind of a range. She's definitely like late teens, very early 20s. Yeah. So like there's a range, I would say, of how old she is. To me, like she was always 20. Like that's where I was playing her because it did feel every time she was drinking that like she didn't really know what she was doing.
You're like there might be a little bit, but it's always nice to give yourself a bit of a starting point because I know it might maybe slightly differ from the book a bit, or it's not
Mhm.
explicitly said. You mentioned the wonderful creative team, your writers. Like, how was your experience working with your showrunner Jeff, your directors, everyone? Like, did you adapt to their working style, and did it feel very collaborative on set?
So collaborative. I know I've mentioned this before, and it's something I talked about when we were speaking about the next step as well, but collaboration is my favorite part of this job. I think if you go in super, super married to what you want to do and how you see it, you're not opening yourself up to other people's creative visions that could be better than yours. And with our showrunner Jeff, who like had such a wide overview of the show and such a deep understanding of like where things were moving, it was so great to work with him and just like watch him world build, which a lot of season one of any show is. And then we had two female directors, Shamim and Jackie, which was just amazing. I love working with female directors. I think most women like working with female directors. I've worked with some amazing male directors too. Absolute shout out to them. Um, but it was such a joy, and they were so careful and appreciative and like understanding of everything Elise was going through. And Jackie was our director when we filmed the coffee shop scene. Um, and I think that was like one of my favorite experiences I've ever had on set. It was really, really great working with her.
It's always nice to get a bit of, that lens from the female perspective and the gaze. So it's so nice to know what a collaborative, amazing team this was. I really hope you get to do a second season and maybe more. I
Hmm.
have one more question for you, a bit of a wild card one.
Hmm.
If you were to compete on MasterChef, what would you make as your signature dish and why?
Uh, can I order Uber Eats for the judges? I would I'm an okay cook as long as I have a recipe. And so really the one recipe I've perfected that I could almost make from memory is like a lemon chicken couscous halloumi dish. So I would have to go that way just because I wouldn't want to give like food poisoning to anyone. So I think that's probably what I would serve. But if I had my druthers, I'd order Uber Eats for the judges and we could like kiki over some good Mexican.
I mean, that sounds like a flavorful dish.
Yeah. I know it's good. It's good, like, but it's a recipe. Like I'm not chefing it up in the like kitchen sans recipe. You know what
I,
I mean?
I do feel like a lot of what people make nowadays, though, originates as some kind of recipe. You just add your own twist and spin to it. So I like it.
Yeah, yeah. I have friends who are really good, like natural cooks though. Like they can look in their fridge and be like, "Oh, I have some cilantro and some sausage. Like let me whip something up." I could never do that.
You're
Like
like, I really need the instructions to tell me what to do, what ingredients I need. I can't.
exactly. I'm like down to like the measurements. I'm not like Salt Bay over here. Mm-mm.
That was such a nice way to end things off. You may not be Salt Bae, but you are a very talented actor. You
Oh,
did
thank
so
you.
well in Finding Her Edge, so I can't wait for everyone to see your work as Elise Russo. Thank you so much for taking the time to dive into the show.
Thank you so much.
I hope we get to catch up again in the future, hopefully more than 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
down the road. But until then, for all those watching, make sure to catch Alexandra as Elise in Finding Her Edge. Season 1 is out now on Netflix, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.